Today on Locked On Rockies, Kris Bryant clears the air and the Colorado Rockies are scoring a lot of runs. A nice little week in spring for the Colorado Rockies. Can they maintain it, and will it transfer over to the regular season?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 4th day of March in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, then you are in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day. It's talk Rockies baseball here for you all. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. If you're wondering who I am your Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on that Locked On Podcast Network. You can also find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. And lots of Rockies fans turned out last week after our episode talking about Kris Bryant aired. And, well, we're going to talk some more about Kris Bryant as well. And we had a lot of feedback and stuff, but as we know, weekends happen, things go quickly, and we saw that Kris Bryant already has something to say, but we'll dive into some of the reaction from you Rockies fans on the show here as well. But not just Kris Bryant to talk about. The Colorado Rockies had a good week in spring training last weekend. The Dodgers still seem to be a problem, of course, but you know, the Rockies do win, I believe it was 5 of 7 games they played last week. And also, 4 of 7 games last week. 3 of those wins coming with 10 runs scored in those games. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And Kyle Freeland was hitting 93 this weekend. And while I know that's not blow you away speed by some metrics of some batters, faster than I bet you could hit, I bet. But that would be huge for the Rockies, is if Kyle Freeland is able to pitch consistently in the low 90s. We'll talk all about that and more here on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we dive into everything today, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. All right, so let's start with the Kris Bryant story. Of course, not a lot of folks were happy with his comments, and I think we kind of took it more as some criticism on Bill Schmidt and the Rockies as on the organization side for their comments after signing Kris Bryant. But let's see here. The FUBAR Proletariat says, I think this was very irresponsible of KB, especially coming into a season in which a lot of young Rocks players will be getting a shot in the majors this year. He's a veteran player with a heap of accomplishments, and that veteran presence will be so important to these young guys this year. I would feel really betrayed and let down by his comments if I was one of those players. I still like Bryant. I just think that this was very thoughtless and irresponsible for him to say. And given his own performance so far as a Rocky, I'm not sure he's in a position to criticize. Let's see here. Mr. J. Will says, love the show, Paul. I'm a Dodgers fan, and I love your passion. Hey, thanks for tuning in here. I really appreciate that. Care about the Rockies and know what you're talking about. I tell everyone I can to check out the show. Rockies have a different energy with the youth movement. Keep what you're doing, and the show will reach new heights. Thank you so much. I mean, folks, you guys have really tuned in. Really appreciated that. Roto Ninja says, so basically the Rockies signed Bryant as a controlled burn. They'll eat the cost of his contract while making up for it with jersey sales, promos, bobbleheads, etc., just to not stay completely irrelevant. Jared Rice says, like Vic Lombardi said on Altitude Radio 2 years ago, the Rockies are in denial of rebuilding and continue to kick the can down the road. Blaine Wilker says, fits in with their young guys as a comment you make about a seasoned platoon guy, not a $180 million contract former MVP. Really concerned about how the clubhouse will be reacting to KB's comments. There are more comments as well. I don't have time to get to all of them. So thank you again, folks, for letting me know. Well, the good news is this: Kris Bryant has seen the criticism here. Here's the ire of Rockies fans here. And on Friday, he wanted to set the record straight. This is from Bryant Sets the Record Straight on prospect comments from Thomas Harding on MLB.com. All right, I know who I am and what I represent, Bryant said. I don't believe in piling on your players or human beings in general. That is not something I would ever do. And I would have no room to even say anything like that, considering how my last 2 years have gone. For me to have the audacity to say something like, ooh, our players aren't good, I'm going to say something like that after not performing and not being on the field like that is how I would never, or how, like that is never how I would ever come across. So, of course, you all remember the quote from the Athletic article where he says, it's like, oh, shoot, I need to get there. There were other teams interested, but I didn't want to wait around. It was a completely different situation for a lot of free agents at the time. I guess I didn't do as much research into the prospects as I could. Bryant did not, and this was from Harding here. Bryant did not say he was misquoted. I probably said it, but context is everything, Bryant said, but insisted that his statement was meant to be about the rush to get into camp, not about regret for signing with the Rockies. I wanted it to be known that I wish it was normal, so I knew who was here, the good players. I'm not saying that they're not good. It's the weirdest thing to me because they're really, really good. I think they need more credit. You had an interested team before the lockouts. The lockout happens, and you don't know who's going to be interested when you come out of it. For me, I like to be prepared. I like to be at spring training, get my feet off the ground, or get my feet on the ground. Honestly, I'm so happy with this decision. I love everything about this organization, how they treat people with respect. You don't find that a lot in baseball. It's really unfortunate something like this has come about. And I just am going to go with another quote here. When I signed, I didn't know who Brenton Doyle was. I didn't know who Aileris Montero. I didn't know Aileris Montero. I didn't know Ezekiel Tovar. I didn't know Adel Amador. Some got drafted while I was here, like Jordan, like like Jaden Hill and Jordan Beck. Now I'm getting a chance to see what I would do or what they can do. It's probably asinine it's absolutely asinine that I would put myself in a position to say our prospects aren't good. I have too much respect for baseball and too much respect for the players and people around me that put in the hard work every single day. Those are the Bryant quotes from the piece. If you want more from it, I don't want to read every single thing there. I highly suggest you go read from Harding's piece and get some more there. But this is the right type of answer here, and this, it does show. One thing that I think that's important to focus on with this storyline and with this conversation, and something that I don't think we talked enough about when I was reacting on Friday there with how fired up I was, but that offseason was weird. Realistically, the off seasons for teams have been very strange up until really last year, but this year was even weird with the TV deals being up in the air. I mean, baseball off seasons have been very strange, really, since the pandemic. I mean, there's been the work stoppage. There's been, there's a million other things that go into each team and each factor going into that part of the season. So I actually do give props there. I mean, I can only imagine when you're such a creature of habit, of repetition, like a baseball player is. You have a routine, you know what you like to do, you know how you get, especially at this point in the season, especially with spring, you have a routine of building yourself up. You need to know what you got to do. And with there to be so many weird off seasons, especially mixed with, coming out of the pandemic, coming out of the work stoppage and all sorts of things like that. I think actually was the Bryant deal before or after? I can't remember, but still, that all factors in there. Weird off seasons going around here. So for Kris Bryant to sit there, if he was saying, all right, this is the best deal, which I probably still was the best deal, and I can get to spring training and get ready to go. I'm ready to rock. I buy in. That makes sense. That makes total sense coming from a baseball player, and for them to be wanting to get into the groove of things. Because look, I mean, baseball is the only sport where you got a whole month and a half of preseason before you go and play 162 games. I mean, it's a lot of prep that you got to do to be ready for the season. So I think that's a good thing to key on there for these Bryant comments when you're looking at that was, it seemed like it rushed. It seemed like, he didn't, in the initial spot, it seemed like he didn't know as much about the team, but this gives him an opportunity to learn. And we can't sit here and deny the fact that we haven't heard stories of Bryant working with the young guys. I mean, if you remember, Nolan Jones spoke very highly of Kris Bryant last year, doing the watch challenge, basically, where he's saying, hey, if you hit, 20 home runs, I think it was, you hit 20 home runs, I'll buy you the watch. I mean, and pushing a player like Nolan Jones. I mean, he's mentioned the prospects there at the end, learning more about them and getting the chance to see them. I give him credit there. It's also tough because man, I mean, we ran away with it too. We did it too. When stuff like this comes up with the Rockies, it's easy to pile on. It's easy to really see through the lines there and dig into. Oh man, big Rockies problems. This is a huge issue. Like I said, the Rockies have earned that reputation, but this was a quick turnaround from Kris Bryant. He immediately saw what was happening. He wanted to squash it, and I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I think that they're what he's saying has, some stuff where there's probably would be nice to know a little bit more. I don't know how you don't know about Montero when if you're doing prospect research and you're covered over and you don't know about Montero, then you missed out on one of the big trades of Rockies history and the guy coming over. But I sit there and I do look back and I read that, you go back to the comments where he's talking about, mentioning I didn't do enough research about the prospects, stuff that he was saying. I think part of this reconciliation here that's important is the fact that he said, I'm in no position to say these things over the last few years. Who am I to sit there and say that I am better than that these guys are bad? Because I'm sure he does believe that he's better than them. He's an MVP and he's a World Series champion. And he's a competitor. I'm not trying to say that as a bad thing, but saying that, he came up and said, like, who am I to say that about this team, given my production of this team? I know that was probably expected to hear and on something like this. I know, but it's still good to hear. It's good to hear him call that press conference himself, say that, hey, who am I to kick someone or talk smack about someone when I myself haven't been on the field. I myself haven't been contributing. That's the type of stuff I wanted to hear. I mean, realistically, at its core, there's probably a lot here, and it was a big kind of catchy thing on that happened on Friday. But there's a lot of nuance and things that happen behind the scenes that we don't always know. But I think really my frustrations there with that with the story were, of course, a little bit with Kris Bryant, but mostly with the Rockies organization and what they were saying and how they were talking about Kris Bryant in the aftermath of the Kris Bryant deal by saying, oh, he was the perfect guy to fit our young core, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. Just admit that you guys really liked Kris Bryant and you wanted Kris Bryant for a long time. We all know that. But Kris Bryant clarifies, we're cool. It's spring. Doesn't sound like anyone else minds. Really good. I mean, hey, props to him for calling the press conference and himself and clearing the air and seeing the importance of his words and his influence for the Colorado Rockies. All right, let's talk about more on the field stuff here. Let's break down spring training this last week and some stuff that we like to see and go from there. Coming up in segment number 2 of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. FanDuel's got you covered for all your basketball action, and there's something about the third month of the year that says basketball. Don't quite know what I'm putting. It'd be cool if it was a big tournament with a bunch of teams from, let's do college, because there's not as many pro teams. Let's get a bunch of college teams together, and let's play a really big single elimination fun bracket. Call it like Insanity or something like that. Well, you can bet on that really fun tournament and more here on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins at Locked On. Locked On. FanDuel.com/locked on. That's where you go to shoot your shot. FanDuel.com/locked on for your chance at $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. You can use the easy-to-use app, figure out everything that you need to know about your sports book. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked on and shoot your shot. That's FanDuel.com/locked on. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. Letting me know what's on your mind here on Rockies baseball. because that's what we're talking about. All right, we talked about the Kris Bryant situation. We got that out of the way. We followed up on that. Let's talk about the good things the Rockies did, because last week was a good week of spring training. Yes, the Rockies did drop a couple of games, including 2 to the Dodgers there, but this was a week in which the Rockies had a 4-game win streak, winning from Wednesday up until Saturday, and 3 of those 4 wins had 10 runs. I don't love the fact that the Rockies had big leads in 2 of those games against, the Mariners and the Cubs, and both of those teams were able to make it a close 1-run ball game in the end. But 3 games, 10 runs, I know this is spring training, but that's the type of stuff that you want to see. This is the new offensive approach. We're still seeing the Rockies go out and steal bases. These are good signs. I saw a tweet and I couldn't remember what it was, so I'm kind of paraphrasing what I saw here. So it's not completely 100%. And I'm sorry, I didn't completely attribute this to someone, but I saw a stat that was saying if people are mashing at spring training at this point, that means they're handling the fastball. The young guys' fastballs, especially with the different types of pitchers you're seeing. The real adjustments, the real change, the real way to see that if this is going to be legit is what happens when the off-speed stuff gets in. What happens when you're facing the elite pitchers here and they have their understanding of the at-bats. They have their research. They have their approach that they're going to be taking after you guys. I actually really liked that because I think it's an important reminder here as the Rockies continue to play good ball here in spring training. How will they be able to adjust to the solely major league level, in the major league environment from spring training into the regular season? What adjustments are they going to be able to make? Because as much as we sit here and we can get really excited, I mean, folks, Ezequiel Tovar, Grander, dude is looking good, man. Dude is looking good. What happened? We know this team can strike out. We know this team has bad offensive habits and tendencies. Will they be able to break them? So far in spring, it looks like it. And man, I know Zach Veen got robbed or got caught stealing there in a couple of, I think it was against the Mariners in that game when he was trying to steal third. But man, I love the pace that the Rockies are playing in spring. I think that they are trying to set a standard, set a benchmark here for how they want to play and who they want to be this season. Now it has to translate into the regular season. The Rockies are going to have to make the adjustments throughout the rest of this month and get ready to go for when they're playing that daunting schedule. I mean, there's no better way to prove that the Rockies are legit than taking a hot spring and going and being successful in the first month and a half of the season. We know, we've talked about on this show multiple times, we know how tough the Rockies schedule is to start the season. But if you're going to win it's okay to win the ugly 10-9 games in the regular season too. If you can go out and be putting 10 spots up in 3 games in a row. I mean, when was the last time the Rockies put 10 spots up in 3 games in a row? A long time. I mean, and let alone it being spring training, mixed in with the fact of that I'll never, the first game of spring training, 16 strikeouts. I mean, the spring narrative, the problem about getting overly excited about the success we've seen from the spring for the Rockies is that it's spring. There's just still so much up in the air for the Rockies and so much that they have to actually go and prove. I mean, again, we talked on Friday about it being a prove it time, a prove it moment. I mean, there are guys out here that want to prove that they're legit, and there are a lot of young guys that want to prove that this Rockies team has legit talent, which hasn't been focused on. Remember, the Rockies, by a lot of projections from beginning of this season, are projected to be the worst team in baseball. And this is a team that doesn't want that wants to prove them wrong. I mean, anybody does. No one wants to be on the team that says you are the worst. You are the worst team there. Your group of players is the worst ones there. And so far in spring, I don't think the Rockies have looked like the worst team in baseball. I think the Rockies have looked like a team that has made progress. I mean, if Ezequiel Tovar is hitting grand slams and everybody is running on the bases, and the Rockies are going out and putting up 10 spots in multiple games in a row against 3 potential playoff teams. If this stretch happened in the regular season, this would be a great week in Rockies baseball. Basically, in a week's action, if you even go back to Sunday to Sunday here from last week, the Rockies actually win 5 of 8 games with almost all of those wins being with double-digit runs, all 10 runs in those games, 10-run wins against the Brewers, the Cubs, the Reds, and the Mariners. I know it's spring training. I'm putting the spring training disclaimers over everything. I have the spring training context here. But if the Rockies went out and beat 4 playoff teams, I know it's not how the schedules work in baseball, but beating 4 playoff caliber teams with 10 runs put on the board, that's a good thing. That's a good sign. I mean, it's something to be encouraged by. The mountain for the Rockies is still incredibly steep to climb, but we can sit here and feel confident in some of the stuff that we're seeing. I believe that we're seeing a Rockies offense that is learning to take a better approach. A 2-hit game for Ezekiel Tovar. Nolan Jones has bounced back after a cold start to the spring. I got a tweet here from Patrick Lyons to go on that here. Give me 1 second. Okay. After starting his spring 0-for-11, this is Patrick Lyons on X, Twitter, whatever. Nolan Jones is 5 for 7 over his last 3 games for the Rockies, including 2 hits against the Dodgers on Sunday. Great adjustment, knowing and understanding that to bounce back, to get back on track. It's encouraging. It's just there are encouraging signs from spring. The problem is it's spring. That's at its core. But right, I mean, but still, I think you can sit here and see that the fact that the Rockies had a bunch of games, what was it, 4 games we said, that they scored 10 runs last week. That's a good sign. That's a good thing. There are major leaguers playing right now in the league. They're in spring training. Every day, it's a gear up. It's a shift up. And the Rockies so far have been able to handle that, except when they play the Dodgers. As the Rockies have in the week lost 2 to the Dodgers and gave up a lot of runs in the process. The Rockies outscored by the Dodgers 16-8 in the 2 games against LA this week. So when you're looking at, that's a benchmark too. That's a benchmark for Rockies fans to look at and to see as well. I mean, it is it's something that you got to keep in mind, because that's the ultimate test right there. The dreaded Dodgers. One other thing that happened from this week in spring training that might be one of the most exciting things. I'm not going to say it's the only exciting thing that happened here, but I want to talk about that coming up in segment number 3. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Gametime. Gametime is the best when you are looking for tickets. If you are looking for last-minute tickets, it doesn't even really have to be always last minute either. You can use Gametime to buy tickets ahead of time if you like, but you shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. You got last-minute tickets, you got flash deals, you got zone deals, all sorts of deals available for you here. And when you're picking your seat from Gametime, you are going to be able to see where you're sitting. One of the best and most important features of Gametime is that, for me at least, they got the lowest price guaranteed. That Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show by liking and subscribing the video. The best way to help the show grow, liking those videos, commenting, letting me know what's on your mind as Rockies fans. Okay, so the thing that I got really excited about from this weekend was Kyle Freeland. Kyle Freeland, 2 perfect innings, got a strikeout through 19 of 21 pitches for a strike, and that velocity was sitting at 93, 92. That's the great sign for Kyle Freeland. Absolutely great sign, because we were sitting there and it's like, oh boy, is he going to be throwing 88 to 90 this year? Is that going to be the top? Is Kyle Freeland's velocity down so much that he can't get up there and reach the mid-90s anymore? Well, that doesn't look like it's the case, as long as he can stay healthy, of course. If he's at this in his first start in spring training, going out there and throwing 93, and he mentions, I believe I was hearing some stuff about changing the workout plans and gearing up and getting ready for the season. 93 from Kyle Freeland is a game changer. You might sit there and say, is it really that much of a game changer? It's just a couple of ticks higher on the velocity. Absolutely. If Kyle Freeland's able to throw with velocity and hit his spots, it's going to induce even more weak contact. It's going to introduce the strikeout to his game. When we looked at Kyle Freeland and we looked at the Baseball Savant page and we looked at the advanced numbers, you see where he misses and you see where he's missing, and it's right smack center in the zone or up in the zone a little bit. But if you're going to be able to use the velocity and with the way he throws the pitch, it's going to break more. It's going to move. It's going to go faster, and hitters are going to have less time to react. It's going to impact and be something that's going to help Kyle Freeland get what he's already good at doing: weak contact from hitters. We know Kyle Freeland can get ground balls and get double plays. We also know Kyle Freeland doesn't have a lot of zip and can throw a meatball and have it hit 800 feet. But to see 93, to see a confident, healthy, excited Kyle Freeland, that's a good sign. I think Kyle Freeland is on the list of, when you're talking about key veteran players for this team, this guy is going into the season once again as the number one, as the ace, as the guy that is going to lead the way for the Colorado Rockies. And I really liked what I liked to see. And man, I just have really been impressed with Kyle Freeland. And here's some couple of things he had to say here to Thomas Harding as well. My main focus is going to be that changeup. I'm definitely going to throw it a lot this spring, get comfortable with it. We really like the spin profile and movement, and I'm working on the slider to get depth back so it can play off my fastball. And getting that fastball velocity back up today was a good day for it. It's at 92 to 94 miles per hour. Man, that it's a good sign. I mean, it's the Kyle Freeland is a guy I remain confident in, and I remain confident that he is someone that is a strong leadership presence on this team. I still think he is someone that can be an effective and good pitcher. I know in the context of things and other situations with other teams, it would be different if Kyle Freeland was on different teams and where he would land in terms of spots in the rotation. It doesn't matter, because I believe that Kyle Freeland would be a no doubt starter in any rotation. But when you're leading things off, when you're the one for the Rockies, you got to start things off strong. You got to set the momentum and set the stage. And I really hope to see a big year from Kyle Freeland. I really think that this is something where he can shine. I'm really excited. There's a lot more about his leadership skills there on this piece from Thomas Harding that I really want, that you should go dive into. Freeland leading Rockies with experience and strikes by Thomas Harding. Again, if you're not following Thomas, if you're not following Patrick, if you're not following all the awesome people doing great coverage of the Rockies, you're missing out, because that's, a big reason why I'm able to do what I do and talk Rockies the way I do is because of folks like Thomas, folks like Patrick doing great work out there in spring training, covering our beloved Colorado Rockies. So really impressed by that first start from Kyle Freeland. Really interested to see how the rest of the spring goes for him. All right, folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us today, making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB. If you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs, free and streaming for you as well. The Locked On Rockies YouTube page, that is the place to go. Your likes, your subscriptions, your comments all help the show grow. Really appreciate all of you for tuning in. Really appreciate all of y'all for getting ready and excited for more Rockies baseball. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.